Kristen, let's get started. What
Hey,
do you
Todd.
think of Bitcoin?
I think this is an incredible opportunity and a time in our life that we will never probably see again. I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 55, so I've lived through a lot of different things and followed. I think you had mentioned on one post about the cannabis trend and everybody jumping into cannabis. I jumped into the cannabis thing, did it. I followed probably every trend there is. And since I worked in pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and then in manufacturing, I've seen and bought all of those stocks throughout that time. Um, and so I think we are about to be on one of the greatest times of our lives. And I am lucky to actually have the opportunity. I had cashed out a pension, which they say don't to do, but I know you're a financial guy, but I wanted to take the opportunity to just really embrace this space at this time and enjoy it and enjoy the ride like everybody else. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have I've said this before, I've mentioned this before in another video, but I don't I'm not against people cashing out their pensions. I mean, if they're gonna buy Bitcoin, if they're gonna spend it on
Yeah.
something that could over the long term just benefit them. I actually have a pension from the last job that I left. It's a locked in fund. The money is just sitting there. I mean, I can't do anything with it until I'm 55, 60. So what I did was I took that money and I put it into a self-directed account where I've put 100% of it into MicroStrategy. And I mean, I could do it with the S&P 500. I could do it with Bitcoin ETFs, but the way that I see it, uh, the money that you have with a brokerage or with an exchange isn't yours. So of course, I could take that massive risk. I mean, I could buy just the Bitcoin ETFs and I could get the same return that I would if I had just held that Bitcoin in my own hands. But this money is locked in and I can't do anything with it. And it'll probably be taxed a lot more in the future, right? So the way that I see it, if MicroStrategy can give me a 5x return just based on what they're doing, they just keep accumulating more and more Bitcoin. Uh, if they can give me a 5 to 10x return, I think it'll pay my taxes and it'll still give me a massive return. So that's just the way that I see it. What are your thoughts on that? Sorry, you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So I actually lived through one cycle of taxes so far, and I survived because I was a nervous wreck. At Merck, you can take I had two pensions, one at Abbott and one at Merck, and I took the Merck one because you can take a lump sum pension and lump sum payout. So that's very rare with pension plans. So that was a huge deal for me to be able to do that. And I lived through the tax cycle, and I'm I started making a profit January of this year when everything spiked with Bitcoin was my first like big. I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually survive on this and live. So it was a huge risky thing to do. Um, but I think that people don't look. I think fear keeps people from looking at everything. You got to look at the big picture of everything. Like, well, I've worked this many years. I have this much Social Security in the future. Like, you can go online and look at what you have in your Social Security eventually. You can look at you got to look at every angle of what you've got coming to be willing to take the risk. So,
I think the Social Security pro is going to probably be a problem for a lot of people because Social Security is rising by 2%
yes.
and whatever CPI inflation is, but the actual cost of things is rising so much faster,
Oh,
10,
yeah.
15%. I actually went to Costco just yesterday
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was just looking at the meat. I noticed that there's this organic grass-fed ground beef
Yes.
that they have, and it used to be $28 for the package. So the package was 4 pounds, $28. So
Come home and
$6 a pound.
separate it. Yeah. And you can come home and separate it.
Now, now the same package is $40. And the first time I saw it was probably a year and a half ago. So it went from $28 to $40. The price has risen by almost 50%,
Right.
which
I,
is absolutely insane.
I don't know. I have four children. I don't know how, and they have children of their own, and I have grandchildren, and I always feel guilty because I feel like I should. I'm like, God, how are y'all affording it? Because I know that it's so expensive. I don't know that I could. Well, I know I couldn't have had children with the inflation that it is now. There is no way. There is absolutely no way to be able to do that now. My children will probably have one child each, maybe two. My grandparents had, one of them had 19 brothers and sisters, another had nine.
Wow.
I went down to four. My children will probably have one or two each. I mean, that, because it's they say our population is not growing, but our population is not growing because we can't afford to grow. So, I mean, there's no, unless people are willing to sacrifice everything they have to have children. And I don't, once you have teenagers, that's a nightmare. You're like, why did I do this? You don't want to do that to yourself. I mean, nobody would. So it doesn't make sense what they're having us do. So
Yeah, it as it gets more expensive, of course, population growth declines. And then on top of that, the number of people who are actually competing for jobs decline.
right,
So production slows down. So, I
right.
mean, of course, technology will, of course, make it change in that. It'll help to improve it. But I have a feeling that while it may sound very bleak, it seems like everybody can't afford even to pay for the basic needs that they have.
Right.
They can't pay for shelter, they can't pay for food. I think Bitcoin is going to change things because over time, as people accumulate Bitcoin and they start paying each other in Bitcoin for the goods and services, for entertainment, for pretty much anything, everybody can now store their wealth for the long term.
Yes.
Right now it is very difficult. I mean, I'm in that spot right now where people around me are having kids, and honestly, I don't know how a lot of them are doing it.
I don't,
Some of them have,
I think what I do as a parent, I go in and look for credit card bills because I'm a nervous wreck.
yeah,
Like, are they going to charge it? I don't want them to charge. Like, that's not a good, you will never get out of that. Just like you can't get off the Fortune 100 rat race. You cannot, once you've started that cycle, and I've done it. I mean, when we didn't have any money for diapers, I definitely charged them. So I'm sure that's happening, or formula, or any, or daycare. I mean, there are, that's the only way I see that people are affording it is through credit cards. Unless,
and that's actually true because household debt has been going up. Credit cards are at a new record high. It's just getting worse and worse.
yeah. So that's, I mean, and that's a 30-year cycle. Like, you will never get out of that cycle until you file for bankruptcy, or you drastically increase your income somehow, but you will never get out of that. So I don't have an answer, but I can say it's not the way to go. I think buying Bitcoin and growing better than inflation is all we can hope for at this point.
I completely agree. I think what a lot of people are falling in the trap of is just thinking that they can spend as much money as they want to because this money is free. I've actually spoken to people who regularly maxed out their credit cards. I mean, some people might say, "Oh, maxing out your credit card isn't a bad thing." Because let's say, for example, if you get a credit card, I mean that's actually the place that
Yeah,
I
if you
stand
pay
in
it off and
because
yeah, but well,
if you pay it off, if you use it to let's say you have a job opportunity that you can't get to without a
right,
car, and this job opportunity is going to pay you another 30, 40 grand a year, and it's going to double your salary. In that case, I think using a
yeah,
credit card to buy a car is actually a
yes,
very smart decision,
absolutely. No,
right?
I absolutely agree. Like, that's that, but you got to weigh all that, and you've got to look at all those moving parts and
Exactly.
pieces. And I think people are, I personally was not able to slow down until 2 years ago when I said, that's it, I'm leaving corporate America. And I really started to step back and look at everything involved. And I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder. Like, I'm not paying attention. I'm so busy trying to get family raised, my job done, everything else. So you can't, nobody can step back long enough to look at everything and go, wait a minute, I'm never going to get ahead if I do this. So it's kind of a survival, keep your head above water. Let's keep going. I'm making great money. Like, I have ones that, my kids are engineers, teachers. I mean, they all have great jobs. It's not like they don't. It's just one's in construction. He actually makes more than the rest of them. So I I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I definitely think it's something that everybody needs to look at. And you've got to weigh your situation, your personal situation, to what's going on. You can't look at your friends or anything else. You've got to kind of look at what, like you said, the car situation. If you need a car and you're going to make more money, get the car. It makes sense. But
So I want to ask you a question that you probably did not expect. I just thought of
okay.
it while you were talking. If somebody wanted to start their own business, you have your MBA,
Mhm.
what would your suggestions to them be? So let's say right now, I think the key here is if you're working a job, you're probably going to get 2 to 3% raises every year until you move to another job. Maybe you'll get a
Right.
15% raise, 20% raise.
Right.
But let's say if somebody wants to leave that and they have a very specific skill that they have and they want to share it and they want to use it to build a business. Do you have any suggestions for that? What somebody could do? Any just basic,
I think,
any basic, because you
so
go
my
ahead.
ex-husband and I started a business. We owned a heat and air company. He started it. I think we were 28 about, and I hadn't got my master's yet, but we knew enough to go, all right, what do we have? And we were networked enough in the community and I had my job. So I think we were okay. But the main thing I would tell anybody is sit down and do the numbers ahead of time. Because if we didn't, like, I knew he had to make $48,000 a year, no matter what, or we were not going to feed the children. Like, I knew that, like, that was, I don't care how he did it. He just needed to bring home $48,000 a year. So he was like, all right, well, he had Walmart as his only, Walmart was his big customer. And Walmart tells you exactly how they're going to bill, how you're allowed to bill, and how much you're allowed to mark up, how much. So we could sit down and do the numbers. That would be the main thing, because I would not jump in. And it still caused a lot of strife later on, because it is not easy to do, because you've got healthcare to worry about. You've got, I mean, what if people are not, there's slow pay people right now. So people are running 30 days to 60 days behind. Companies are running 30 to 60 days behind and paying you. And if you don't keep up with that billing, it's just a spiral. So, but I would definitely say do it, because if you do not do it, if we had not done that in our 20s and 30s, we would have never done it, because you're on the
Mm.
spiral. You can't, like, we were into our health care and all the benefits we had with being with a big company that I think when you're young you can risk, because like with healthcare, you're not really sick. You don't need to pay $1,000 a month for not going to the doctor. I mean, that just does not make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So, and since I worked in healthcare, we had self-pay fee schedules that are like 10% of what they actually charge the insurance company. So you can ask for a self-pay to go to the doctor. I mean, there are things you can do just for those couple of years that you're starting your company to readjust and make things livable. So, and it's not like we took off and woo, we're making money. It took years. And
So basically, start.
yes,
That's the main thing.
that's the
Start.
main start it.
The second thing would be run the numbers, make sure
Yes,
that you can understand what you're getting yourself into. And then the third thing is don't expect a quick payoff,
right. There's
right?
nothing. Yeah, there is no quick money in the world. I wish there was,
Yeah.
but I've looked for it. I've looked high and low, but I have not found anything that is quick money. So
Yeah. The way that I see it, because it's so difficult to start a business is because the first few years are so hard and most people are just living paycheck to paycheck.
yes,
I think the current system is essentially designed to get people to
it
keep
is.
working jobs.
It is. It
Would
is.
you agree
I
with
mean, like,
that?
yeah, absolutely. So you start from college or out of college. I mean, you don't go to college and you start a job right away. So you're immediately hooked into, they need you to pay Social Security. They need you to, so they're going to try to keep you. I mean, I think this. I don't know if there's big world above me thinking this, but I think from you get stuck on in the system of you need health care, you need to pay back student loans, so
Right.
offer you student loans, so and then you need to get a job, so you need to pay them back, so you can't work for yourself, and then on top of that you need health care, so you can't work for yourself. I mean, it just keeps going, and they say like we're going to help small businesses, but I don't think I ever saw in over 20 years of owning a company. Now we do large Walmart installs, but I don't think I ever saw America helping us. Maybe the stimulus during COVID, but that wasn't help. That was just to keep you going. So
Yeah. I don't even think that was to keep you going. I think that was to keep people sh quiet,
yes, that was probably hush money.
right?
Yeah. So
It
because
was like hush money, exactly.
and then people that didn't spend it correctly still went out of business, and they own huge homes because they got the, I mean, the smaller people,
Yeah.
just watching around me, watch what other people did. And I'm like, wow. And actually watching family, what they did with it, I was like, wow, that's not what, like, there's so many, buy Bitcoin with it. You could have turned that into, I mean,
Like
look at what
10
they're,
grand,
yes, easy.
right?
I mean, people easily got 100, 200,000 and they went and bought cars. And so
Yeah.
I definitely think that was it could have been hush money. I don't know. I don't know how things work that high up, but I know what I saw. So
I mean, the way what I meant was essentially that if people are getting even a small amount of money from their
yeah, they're
government can say,
grateful.
"Oh yeah, we paid you, so
Yeah.
you don't have anything to complain about." And if you're accepting it, of course, it's like, "Oh, you're okay with it," and you can't say anything because you spent that money. And once you figure out what the problem is, because they had to borrow so much money to get
Yeah.
this, I guess in your terms, hush
Yes.
money out,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the debt has been increasing, and they've now had to be printing more and more and more money just to keep going, just to make
Yes.
ends meet, just to
Yes.
make it so that they don't go bankrupt. Because if they don't keep printing money, if they don't sorry, not printing, if they don't keep borrowing money, the Fed doesn't keep printing money, then that means that the US government can't pay its debts.
Right.
And what's happening now is the US government has to go after basically small businesses
Right. And
and
that,
take take the power away from them because small businesses can accept Bitcoin, and I mean in a way it's also decentralization, right? How many businesses do you go after if you think they're accepting money without paying taxes, right? So
right.
I think that's part of it. Obviously, the centralization. Let's say Walmart's going to keep paying taxes because that's essentially their protection money,
Yeah, that's
right? It's
exactly. There's lobbyists, and my father was a
exactly
lobbyist. I was born in DC. My dad was a lobbyist for the floral industry, so I did see when I was a kid, but definitely there are lobbyists. They're looking out for those for Walmart's. There are lobbyists looking out for the big guys or the pharma industry that for Merck, for Abbott. There are big people looking out for those people. There is nobody looking out for the small business owner, and
yeah,
that's discouraging. I mean, even I know the first time we went to go get leverage or a loan for I didn't even know. I was getting my master's. I had no idea. I'm like, we're getting a loan to cover this job at Fort Bragg. And I mean, I didn't know what we were doing. Even that, it was not fully disclosed as what we were getting involved in. We just thought, oh great, they're willing to lend us money and we'll do this job. And we didn't know about draws and when to take this distributions, any of that. There was none of that. So it was almost like you're set up to not be able to pay that loan back in a way, but we're going to keep you struggling enough to where we'll make money. So it's
right.
yeah,
Right.
it was
And that's how it is for real estate right now. I was just running the numbers on it. With real estate, if you buy a $500,000 or a $625,000 house, you put down 20% and it's a 6% interest rate on the loan, you're paying half the value of the house to
yes.
the bank.
Oh yeah, no, I've ran the numbers on that recently, and because I have one child that owns a home, and then my other three are looking for homes, and I was showing them everything, a reason, and ran the calculations like, do not buy a home, like do not. And I mean, that's fine. Like you're buying a lifestyle when you're buying a home, and that's fine. Like when I was raising my kids, I wanted them in a certain school district, I wanted them around certain friends, I wanted them. Or you're buying the dream of, and it worked, but and that may work and it depends on what you want in your life, I guess. But like that's what my dream was, is to have them be in a good school. I mean, do everything they need to do to get to be successful and get back to this world. So, but it definitely, I I made money on the home. I sold my home too to buy more Bitcoin. But I think you it serves its purpose, but there's a time when that purpose out doesn't fit. So
Yeah, that's it. I think you have to do the cost benefit analysis. Uh,
yes,
I think in terms of Bitcoin, the price of housing is going to decrease forever. Of course, because there's so many houses that are even right now. Did you know that there's something like 15 million houses in the US that are unoccupied?
that's crazy.
Insane. That's a stat that I keep bringing up because people think that housing is scarce, but it's not.
I
The
think that's the
market.
message the industry is creating, but I don't, because I have
Oh no,
homes around me.
exactly. I agree. No, completely. But
It's
that's
just
what the industry thinks. That's what real estate investors think. And I think that's a big problem because when you really think about it, if those houses get replaced with buildings or they get replaced with, let's say, apartments, it just increases the supply of housing, the supply of people who can actually buy a house to live in. And then on top of that, let's say the way that I think of it, I think a lot of real estate investors are going to figure out what Bitcoin is. Like, let's say your children, if they do the cost benefit analysis and instead of buying a house, they think we're going to buy Bitcoin. They're taking Bitcoin out of the market and they're leaving supply of housing to other people, meaning that the price of houses should go up. It's a supply and demand.
right.
So I was doing just a quick calculation. I know a lot of people wanted to know about this. I got a couple comments on this. I'd like your thoughts as well. So
Sure.
I did a quick calculation here for one of my other conversations. I put the down payment as 125,000. So you buy a $625,000 house. $125,000 down payment, you have $125,000 upfront. Bitcoin's growth rate, that's just, let's say this is based on the very conservative return, 25%,
Yeah, which is conservative. Yeah.
right? Very conservative. I think it could go a lot higher.
Right.
I put in housing's growth rate as 5%, but of course you have a leveraged return because you're borrowing 80% of the value of the house.
Right.
So
And well, and the
it,
loans amortize too. Aren't you paying like the first
yeah,
10 years, you pay more on the interest up front than you do? I mean, nobody explains this stuff to anybody. It's sad.
that's exactly what it is. So a mortgage left over after 10 years, you
Mhm.
still have $418,000 left over to pay.
Right.
So let's say your house price rises by 5% per year. You own the house 625, it just keeps rising, house price. In year 10, based on your leveraged return,
Right.
you'll get $1,018,000 for the house. So the house will be worth $1,018,000. So
That's
your
how much you pay.
profit,
Yeah.
right, your profit after you pay off the mortgage is going to be 599,000. And then on top of this, keep in mind you're taking tons of risk. You
Right.
don't pay your
Right.
mortgage a couple times, you lose the house.
Right.
If something happens to the house, maybe insurance doesn't pay you, you lose everything,
Right.
right? And all those risks, I don't know if those are worth it. I mean, I think this is something that a lot of people should be looking at before they
Well,
buy a
and all
house.
the unfixed costs, because I know, and I was just a mom.
Maintenance, yes.
Yeah, I was a mom wanting a nice home for four kids. I mean, but I didn't look at all the unfixed costs, like even the taxes that go up every
Yeah.
year. That you're like, why my escrow needs to be paid more, and the stuff that they don't explain to you, it is really scary. And if you have an income or you can't make anymore, you don't have a side gig, you're stuck. How do you make up for all those
Yeah.
payments? So, and the things of stuff breaking, there's a,
Eh, no, go
sorry,
ahead, go ahead.
no, you,
Oh, I was gonna say, and there's also property tax. You just have to keep paying that over and over again. Again, if you
yeah,
miss a
which goes
payment.
up. Like if you're in a good
Right.
school district, it goes up. Like I think my taxes, the first year we bought a home was $1,200. By the time I sold that home, those property taxes were $3,700 a year. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a lot. That was only in 15 years. So that's a lot of money.
But also keep in mind, I didn't even include in this the realtor fees, the
Oh
property
yeah.
taxes. All that stuff is also, it also has to be considered. And then let's look at the other side here with Bitcoin. With a 25% return, keep that in mind. Bitcoin, 25% for the next 10 years. I don't think that's going to happen. The supply is almost completely done. Most financial institutions have no idea what this is right now, and they're going to figure it out.
Right.
So I think it could,
They're gonna be, yeah. I know kids,
yes.
it's fascinating that, that they don't know.
Yeah. I think they're going to figure it out over time. I don't see them missing out on this. Keep in mind that there are a lot of, there are some hedge funds that are actually shorting Bitcoin, which to me is the stupidest decision you can make, but they're doing it, right? So that just shows you how early we are. So
Yeah.
if Bitcoin just gives you that 25% return, in year 10, you have double the money
Right.
that you have with the house. Of course,
Right.
you get to live in the house. You have to either rent the house or you have to live in the house, but you're also making massive payments on this house every single month.
And massive payments and electric bill and everything. Like,
Right.
um, I know when our electric bill went from like 150 to $600 by the end with raising four kids and everything. I mean, you you can't calculate. I mean, looking back, I'm like, God, why didn't I see that coming? Why didn't I see that coming? But you don't see all that stuff coming, and your water bill gets bigger, and your everything. It's not just the house.
Yeah, and it'll keep increasing for the foreseeable future. It'll keep increasing essentially forever. It's not going to stop increasing because that's not how things work. The US government is going to continue printing, the Canadian government's going to continue printing,
Right.
and it'll keep getting worse. The cost of living will keep going up no matter what. There's nothing that you can do to slow it down or to stop it. I actually wanted to show what the payment would be for that house. So let me
Okay.
just
But
share
yeah,
my
it's gotta be at least 2,300 of it, maybe. No, it's gotta be
uh
three
no, it's
thousand.
more. It's
3,000. Yeah.
3,000.
Yeah.
3,000 a month. So if
Yes.
you can find a place for $3,000 a month, and then you put the Bitcoin, the savings from Bitcoin, you put it into your sorry, the down payment, you just put it into Bitcoin, you make this $3,000 payment, you could probably find a place,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is right now, maybe with the interest rates being so high, but if the interest rates drop, maybe it would be a little bit smarter to buy the house, but I don't know, prices would increase as well.
I think I saw something yesterday that said it, it's not smart to buy a house until interest rates go below 4%. And I don't know why that number was there, but it was a thing I saw. So it
Yeah.
makes sense. And I think when I had bought my homes, they were like it was so low back then. But now with the
So
interest,
I did the exact same calculation with 2% interest rate. An $800,000 house is what you could afford with a $3,000 payment.
wow, yeah,
So the
wow,
price is going to go up. I mean, in nominal terms. So I mean, I think in general, buying Bitcoin, saving for a couple of years,
yeah.
probably the best decision you can make.
If you can save through this next cycle, which we're in, I mean, I really think like I know people are waiting probably on the sidelines, like, oh, interest rates are going down, but if they can take that money and put it into Bitcoin, they will have 4 to 5 times more. I mean, that's being, I think, I mean, that's being conservative, but that's a lot of money. I mean, for a
Yeah.
young family that you can, and and I think once you, I think if you, and I don't want to say let go of the dream because it's an American dream to own your house, and I believe in it. I mean, I think it feels good. It makes your family complete. I mean, I think it's a good thing, but I don't think at these prices it's a good thing. So,
It's like what you said, housing is a lifestyle. It's not something that you don't need to buy a house. There's no need to buy a house if you don't, if you do the numbers, if you're thinking as a rational investor, a rational
right.
saver, your goal should be to just increase your purchasing power. If that's what you want to do. I mean, I wish that I knew what Bitcoin was when we bought this house, but I think we got a little lucky. If I knew what Bitcoin was, we'd probably have a lot more money. But
Well, I don't think the system is set up for you to know because
yeah,
you, your friends, whoever you're around, whoever your kids are around, they bought a house. You're like, oh, we'll buy like if they're doing it, well, they must know what they're doing. So everybody just your parents did it. I mean, so you just keep going and going until you're able to slow down and go, all right, that did not work. That did
yeah,
not. I mean, which is basically what happened to me. Like I should have way more. I'm like, for what I bought the house for? What I'm like, and I made money, but I'm like, the bank made way more money than I ever did. So that's that's not helping me. That's not
no.
helping my family get ahead or helping your family get ahead if the bank's making more. I mean, and that I think the goal is to make America. I'm an idealist, so I have dreams, and I think that make us all prosper, and everything gets better. I mean, you can't just. It's kind of built to keep some, it keeps you down or keeps you in the rat race or whatever, and you're not able to follow your dreams or whatever you want to do to get back to this world or whatever your goals are because you're so stuck paying for a house and everything else. So I
And
definitely
if you
think.
think about it, let's say somebody buys that house as a rental property. They're going to own the house. People think I'm just going to pay it off with my mortgage, my income, my rental income. But what
Yeah.
you're doing is with you're still giving the bank that extra $500,000 of value. It's not like you're
Right.
not giving that to the bank. It's just being transferred to someone else. So you're buying something if you're let's say a real estate investor or if you buy more houses than you need. You're buying something if you want to rent it out to someone else, and you're taking a profit and you're essentially making your tenant's life a little bit more difficult,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's the way I think of it.
Yeah.
Do you
No,
agree?
yeah, no, so, and this was 20 some years ago, but my ex-husband and I, we had both had townhomes, and we were like, we're gonna keep the townhomes. This is a great idea, we thought. We're gonna keep the townhomes, we're gonna rent them, and we're gonna buy a separate home that we live in, because we thought we can be realtors, no problem. That's a hard job, and
It
we
is.
were not good at it. Like you, um, and I think maybe in a way, corporations running that rental business is not bad, because mom and pops like me and 20 years old, if you give me a sob story and you can't pay your rent, okay, I feel bad. And then you've got the maintenance on top of your home maintenance to keep up with. So then you have three homes maintenance to keep up with. We couldn't wait to sell those. Like I mean, that was like, God, please, somebody come get these. Like we would have like practically given them away for what we owed. We didn't like it was we're just that's not my gift. Maybe if that's other people's gift, but that was not mine, because I can't look a single mom in the face with trying to feed her kid and she can't pay me rent and tell her to get out. I couldn't do it. I
Yeah.
mean, I some people, if you look at it as like a business and you can do that, but those are human beings and their lives that you you could ruin somebody's life, and I didn't
Yeah.
like that responsibility on my that wasn't me. So
Having to having to make them homeless, having to
yeah,
make them find another place in a rush, in a hurry.
yeah,
I mean, it's why not just not take the risk? Why not just not take that responsibility? Let's leave the house, leave
yeah,
the housing prices to the market. Market forces will decide what houses should be. And I
yeah,
think this is one of the problems that I have with real estate investing, because when the current system can just print as much money as it wants to, as it needs to
right,
support the price of housing, then house prices will keep going up because more and more people will be able to
right,
offer bigger amounts of money. Because, like I showed you, the at a 6% interest rate, the $500,000 mortgage
yeah,
can at a 2% interest rate be $800,000 as a mortgage. So if you're putting 20% down, you can go from buying a $625,000 house to a $925,000 house. And it's not like the person who's buying the house is going to say, I'll stick to the 625,000. Most people aren't going to do that.
and
Most people are going to go, most people are going to go as far as they can because that's just how things are.
well,
That's just how we're taught to think.
and you become proud that, like, I know when my house kept going up and up and up, and I was like, oh, look at my house is going up. Was it really worth going up? I don't know that it was. I mean, it was because of inflation. I did not know that at the time. I thought maybe I had this great house, like in this great neighborhood. No, it's like I know now that I've stepped it back and been like, oh, that was all inflation. That had nothing to do with I made this great purchase and I did some great things. It really came down to what the bigger picture was
And then if we go back to the fertility, remember we were talking about that in the beginning.
yeah.
I mean, not being able to own houses, that's in my opinion, that's what's
Oh,
causing
yeah,
that
yeah.
problem.
Because you don't how if you can't give your child a place to live, I mean, like the basic necessity, a place to live, and you can't feel comfortable that you have given your child. I mean, every parent wants to give your child. I rarely think there are bad people in the world that don't care about the children. Most people want to actually care for the child and get their child, even at like, I know my youngest son, they have he works in construction. He has a good life, but they have a townhome. She wanted to have the baby. They had a one bedroom townhome at first, and then now they have a two bedroom townhome, and they rent. But she wanted the baby to have its own room. I mean, like a normal person wants that. You're to
Yeah,
decorate the room and and there's no shame in that. You should want that. Like that's
yeah.
how we raise good children. I mean that stuff is important. So I agree with that. That would if you can't afford a place for your baby to sleep, I mean, by my fourth one, I would always say, just pull out a drawer. It does not matter. They don't even know they're in the drawer. They can sleep in a drawer. They don't need their own room. But I
Yeah.
mean, you, it's that dream that we were all sold, and it's not a bad dream. We should be able to live it, that you can raise your family, have a home, go to regular school functions or whatever, and everybody be safe and happy. And we all live like that. And it's not turning out like that. And I hate it. I
Yeah.
hate watching
It,
it. I definitely think Bitcoin, I know that taking the house money and putting it into Bitcoin will definitely make people wealthier in the long run.
and I
I,
think, I mean, in at some point in the future, one Bitcoin is going to be equivalent to one house.
yeah. And oh,
That's
it's not this year. I mean, I would not doubt if what's happening, what we're seeing happening with all of the banks and everybody jumping on board, and all of the liquidity in the market, just watching the last cycle and being in that, I was like, wow. Uh, So, and even the beginning half of this year, I just can't imagine it not people not being able to buy their dream, whatever their dream is, they will be able to do it with Bitcoin. I believe that. Like
yeah.
I believe even, or if people want to start companies or what they will be able to do it. I mean, and I know my children probably like, God, there goes mom again with her Bitcoin, but I see that you really can do. I mean, and I've seen it in my statements. I'm like, wow, like I can live whatever dream I want now. And I was not able to do that before. It was very like you were stuck in this miserable corporate job. Like I was going to be stuck forever. So, I mean, I definitely and I wasn't willing to stay my whole 50s and 60s. And you know that I know me looking at people when I was in my 20s and 30s, like, God, why didn't that person retire? Well, I know now that person couldn't afford to retire. That person
Yeah.
cannot like, and I remember rolling my eyes like, God. And I was determined to never be one of those employees who are like, I don't care, whatever, I mean, but you you get trapped and you can't get out. I mean,
Yeah.
so I think this is gonna a lot of people are gonna be able to follow their dreams that they were never able to even do before. So
I think the current financial system is so corrupt because it lets you leverage your salary, which you don't even know is going to be happening in the future. You don't know if you're going to be
I didn't
getting
even know
paid
what
in the
that
future.
exactly. And I know that now that you say that, like leverage your salary. Did not know what that. I wouldn't have known what that meant. I was like, I didn't even know that was what was happening. Like you
Yeah.
just jump on the everybody, well, they got a new car. Well, and it's not that you're trying to keep up with the Joneses because I'm not that type of person, but you're trying to just give yourself a good life. Like,
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, it's nothing fancy, nothing great. Just you're an educated human being that deserves the right to make a good life living. I mean, that's
Yeah.
and get because you're giving back something of value to this community. So
Yeah.
it's a
But
give
then
and take.
with the current system, whatever you're giving to the community and you're saving, you're just
Yes,
having it stolen away from you.
you
It's stolen
are.
away from you forever.
No, yes. And I mean, I look back at all the years. I'm like, God, that was a ton of money. Just that I just threw out in the inflationary world and didn't because there was no save your 10%, do what you're supposed. I mean, there was no other way. Now we finally have another way. So,
Even even 10%, I don't even think that's enough at this point. I'm there.
yeah,
There's probably I think I've seen quite a few calculators. I mean, quite a few calculations that show, oh, 10% is great. I used to fall for that trap because I thought 2% inflation is normal.
yeah.
And
I know.
that's not the case.
Well,
So
and
let's
then
say you're making 100.
well,
Sorry, go ahead.
if you ever looked at the fees, like if I look at my 401k and how much money I paid in fees, which you look at that little statement at the bottom, it says 0.03 or whatever, three, whatever it says, you're like, whatever, that's nothing. That is a ton of money. Like
Yeah,
that goes to the management company that is yours. That people
yeah,
can easily manage themselves.
yeah.
Not easily. I definitely think we need CFAs and we need people guiding us, but I don't think we need what we have. But
See, I
to
don't think we would on a Bitcoin standard. I think we could just save in Bitcoin,
right. No, I
right?
agree.
You won't need to buy stocks. You won't need to buy all this random stuff that the current system relies on you buying. So I did the calculation here quickly.
Okay.
$500 monthly investment into the S&P 500. S&P 500 has given
Yeah.
what as 10% return.
10%. Yeah, 10%.
Yeah, inflation's been about what 3%.
Yeah.
I think the reality has been a lot higher.
Yeah,
But
20, I think it's
3%
been
is what
like
we're told.
23%. Yeah,
Yeah.
23.
I mean, exactly. That's exactly what it is. But because I mean, the reason why can I explain why you said that? Like, is
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
the way that I see it, the way that I see it, prices should be coming down because technology gets better over time. So
Right,
the theft is on top of the CPI inflation,
right. Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
No,
okay, 7% return, but then I think prices are actually increasing by 7 to 10% return if you, no, 7 to 10% if you consider that technological improvement. So if 7% return, 50 years to grow. You start at
right,
20, you keep letting it grow until you're 70.
right.
This is
And
what you'll
that's what it's
have.
trying to move. Well, then their whole, the goal now is people need to keep working till they're 70. I
Yes.
don't have it in me to keep doing what I was doing till I was 70. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
I, I think people need probably two or three different careers in your life. You can't just do, it's not humanly possible to keep that passion.
Yeah, it's not. It's really not. So I'm going to just do the other side of the calculation. Let's say you have a 48, let's say you're spending 48,000, you're putting $12,000, or no, sorry, not 12,000. Let's say you're spending 54,000 a year because you're putting 10% into your savings, which is
Right.
$500 monthly. So we'll get rid of this. This is what your expenses are going to go up to. So it's at 54,000 in the beginning. Let's say just the growth is at 3%, the increase is at 3% per year. 50 years to grow, you're going to be spending $241,000 a year.
Crazy.
So so your retirement fund, the $2.7 million that you saved,
Yeah.
will only cover you for 11 years.
Yeah. 11 years. If you're not reinvesting it, or if like what, so my mother retired as a CFO. Edward Jones came and said, give us your portfolio. You'll get an annuity. This is what we're doing. She did it,
Hmm.
but it's not the best option. Like, so now somebody
No,
else comes and gets the fees from it. And then it, and just offers her this amount and you get it like a,
that's exactly. This
that,
doesn't even include fees, right? This doesn't even consider
yeah,
fees. So fees are going to be 1%.
yes.
So your portfolio isn't going to cover you. I mean, have you heard of the Trinity rule, the 3% or 4%?
No, tell me about it.
So you can actually withdraw, the studies have been done to show you that you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio every
Uh-huh.
single year in retirement, and it'll carry you until you pass away for 30 years, up to 30 years. So in this case, you wouldn't have even be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to,
No,
you'd be withdrawing way more.
it's crazy.
It's just a
No,
broken, I think a lot of people are going, no, go ahead.
well, and you have to look at Social Security too. So if you've had a corporate job,
Yeah,
I mean, and that increases, so you get maybe 3,000 a month. I think your max, right? The max right now you can get is 5,000 a month.
5,000 a
So
month. Okay.
yeah, if you retire at 50, 62, I think. So that's,
Okay.
yeah, you may need to look at that again because they change it all the time. But, and I
Yeah.
think that's, that's the max you can get. So, I mean, you have to look at all of that too. So, um, but it's still, it sounds like a lot. Like when I look at, I'm like, wow, I'll be fine. No, I will not. If we keep on this inflation rate, none of us are going to be okay. I mean, unless something changes or unless we find Bitcoin. So,
Yeah, that's it. So it says the maximum benefit depends on the age you retire. For example, if you retire at full retirement age in 2024, your maximum benefit would be 38.44. However, if you retire at 62 in 2024, your maximum benefit would be 27.10. So if you retire early, you're going to get less. If you retire
yeah,
late, you're going to get a lot more. But the
because
chances of
it keeps you working in a
it keeps you
miserable
working.
job. Like,
Exactly. And then people have $5,000 of expenses and they
right.
think this is the only way for me to get out. My
Yeah.
company's not paying me a pension. I don't have any savings. I need this $5,000 a month. Otherwise, I have to downgrade my lifestyle. And people don't, I mean,
Right. And then on top of that, people are about 50 to 55, maybe 45, people start having healthcare problems. So if you're
yes,
not, I mean, you're stuck on in that system too, where you can't quit your job because you need healthcare. And then after that, you can't maybe quit your job because you need the additional income. You can't even retire, partially retire. You're in a big
yeah,
circle. So,
you're
and I
just
don't,
exactly.
just a do loop of never ending. I think Bitcoin's the only way out. That's
That's
on
it.
my own conclusion. Like
I think that's it too.
I and I mean we'll know this cycle for sure if this is the way out. But I believe it. I mean I retired last year and I've spent this whole time just doing Bitcoin because I put a little bit in, and then I was like, why am I making money on this? This is weird. I just heard about it, and I was like, let's just see what this does. It's kind of like the cannabis thing. I jumped into that. It was like, let's just see. I'll make a few $100s here, see what happens. And I did that with Bitcoin, and then I made money, and I kept making money, and I was like, this is strange. What's going on? And that's when I like, wow. I'm like, this is amazing. Now this year or into through October of next year will be our come to Jesus moment. Like, well, we will know or we don't know. Like, but I think, and then I will be heading back to work if it does not.
I think just to set some expectations, I think it's important to also consider that the price could drop. Let's say it goes to
Good. Oh, horribly.
300,000, $400,000, and then it drops 80%. I mean,
Then
who
I
knows
quit.
if it'll even reach that initial point? For all we know, this is a long-term bear cycle. If
Yeah.
let's say the price goes to 100,000 and then it drops 80% down to 20K. We
And
don't know.
Raj,
I think that's no, sir, go ahead.
every once in a while, Raj, I'll go, what if I'm delusional? And like, this isn't like this is because there's so much upside that you have to go, all right, I could be delusional about this. Maybe all these
That's
people on
it.
Twitter, like maybe all these people on Twitter are delusional. Like we don't know. Like we're hoping Sailor has this. We hope all of us know what we're doing. We are smart people. Like it's not like we're not looking at every angle. So I have to pinch myself sometimes and go, all right, this could be fit. Like, we don't know. It could be really bad.
Yeah.
But so far, I've been in since 2017. I have not, I mean, 2013, really. I got a little tip and was like, I'll buy $10, but I mean, so far, I have not been wrong, but I could very well. We could all be looking for jobs tomorrow. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely,
That's
I,
it.
yeah, I'm a realist on that.
That's why I like to think the only way to really buy this is long term. If you have a very, very long time horizon, Bitcoin is
Yes,
it's not risky. It's
right,
it's the least risky asset in my opinion. You have a long time horizon. If you have
right.
a short time horizon, it's probably the
Oh,
most risky,
no, yeah, this is not good.
right?
I mean, emotionally, this is not good for somebody that has a short time horizon. I think, like
Yeah.
emotionally, if you're looking at your phone and going, "Oh my God," and you've got stuff to do and a life to take care of your kids or what you can't emotionally, it would wreck you if you had short time.
Yeah. That's
I
it.
definitely,
That's exactly what it is.
and I think Michael Saylor's like 4 years. I would say 10, just because that's me. Because 10, first year, first time, first cycle, and the cycles may end after this with all of the liquidity coming in. We may
Yeah.
not have cycles is extreme. So
Yeah. So this is a 4-year moving average chart.
right,
So the line here, it just shows you the price, the moving average price of Bitcoin over time. And I think this is such a great chart to show you to what to focus on essentially. If
right,
people are just focusing on the short-term movements, they're going to get wrecked. They're always
right,
going to lose because the market's the most fearful at the bottom and it's the most uh it wants the most exposure at the top. It's the most happiest to invest at the top. So we can see here, if you ignore these movements, these short-term movements, the dots are essentially short-term movements. If you look at just this line, this gold
right.
line here, it shows you what's happening. Let's hold long-term. This is a 4-year moving average. For the last 4 years, every single 4-year period, the price has just gone up.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's it.
And
I
I
think,
think
no, go
people
ahead.
have people have to live it though. I think you definitely have
Yes.
to live it and see it, and keeping people in long enough to see it. And even my kids, like I told my kids to set up a Coinbase account and just to buy $10 of Bitcoin and just watch it. Just sit back and watch it. Like, I don't know if they have time to do it. They're probably rolling their eyes. I don't know. But I know if they watch it today, they would be up compared to
Yeah.
what, I mean, they might have what, another $15 or something. They might have $15 versus 10, but it's worth learning. And if you're not paying attention, like people need to know there's other ways out there. Like there's not, and I think you go to work and you're like, this is the 401k, this is what I need to do that. There are other ways. And I think if you would have told me that at 30, I was like, no, the corporate company says to do this, this, and this, and I'm following those steps. And then our our CFA that came in and talked to all of us and told us this and what we needed to do, I'm following it. Like that's what I would have said. Me at 55 would say, I should have followed most of that. I probably should have followed most of that. And I did, but I should have kept some on the side for other options.
Yeah,
So there's,
it's always smart, I think, to have some liquid cash. I mean, in the short term, that's
yeah,
definitely a smart thing to do. If you have some liquid cash, of course, you can take more opportunities. You
yeah.
can
Start a
you can have the
company
freedom.
too. I mean,
You can have the freedom to not have a job, right? I
yes,
think that's huge. I think
that's huge.
that's a
Or all
massive
your,
benefit.
yes. I mean, if you want to go do a cat charity or a dog charity, whatever you want to do, you can do. And that's a dream with the money you've
Yeah,
made money on. I mean, I made money with. You've divested it. You've
yeah,
made. I mean, and if you like the 401k, I could have taken a loan out of 401k, but I'm paying my bet self back interest. Well,
yeah,
I mean, that was a weird situation. I mean, and I had done that before when the kids were in college, like taking a loan out against 401k, then paying myself back interest. And then you're back on that loop of never getting out. So because you own that loan back, that you're paying yourself back
yeah,
interest.
yeah. And it's just like it's just a way to keep the money hidden, essentially.
Yeah.
That's what the 401k is. It's a way to stop people from spending today so
Yes.
that inflation doesn't rise too much.
Right. That's exactly. Yeah. That's really
And then
scary.
I think see that I think that's another thing that Bitcoin is going to spark. I think Bitcoin is going to make it so that people don't have to lock their money away, so
Right.
they can spend it as soon as they make it. Like there's probably people who bought back when it was at 16,000.
Oh
They're
yeah.
up four times, and now
Yes.
they're thinking, I'm going to sell some. I'll just
Right.
buy whatever I want to right now, sell some now, and I'm good to go. But
And
then
I think
nobody
that's
can stop them from doing that.
right. And that's exciting, but it's also dangerous because no one's looking like I know the first cycle that I made money, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can go buy, I can go on vacation. Like I like
Yeah,
those little things. Like I'm not a Lamborghini or anything. Like just to be able to go on vacation, I was like, I can go on vacation, but I needed to learn to like, okay, take 10% of that.
that's it.
And that's a big thing to learn. And I've listened to a bunch of people, and I think you've talked about it, is like when you take profits, maybe take 10%, and that don't you don't need to buy a Lamborghini, because that's hurting you in the future. Like buy, take 10%, maybe go on vacation, do something you want to do for you, and then keep the rest in Bitcoin and keep going. I mean,
The way that I think of it, it's just a savings account. If I need cash, I sell
right.
some. If I don't need cash, if I have extra cash, I just buy some. Right? That's just the way that I have structured the way that I move my money around, and it's worked for me so far. It's given
Yeah.
me a chance to actually accumulate when I don't have cash, and then not have to panic if
Right.
sorry, accumulate when I have cash and not have to panic if I need cash. I've actually had to sell once, and I don't see that as a problem because that's the
No.
point.
Yeah. But as long as you know, like, I know I've had to do it and I feel guilty a little bit, but I'm like, you know what? That's okay because you made, like, that's all right. Like, and I think, um, we're set up to feel guilty a lot of the time. Like, don't sell, don't sell, don't sell. Well, realistically, that's great. I mean, that's not real. That's not real life. I
Yeah,
mean, I mean that's
especially if you want to use it to save your time. I mean, that's the value of Bitcoin, right? It helps you save your time. It helps you to spend your time more efficiently. Let's say, for example, if you had to get a car versus
yeah,
walking everywhere, you have
yeah,
to spend some of your Bitcoin, and you can get to work a few hours early
right.
instead of having to walk there. You can go to work, or you can spend more time at home. You can be well rested. You could work on
Right.
a side gig at home. Of course, you have to sell some of your Bitcoin, but
But,
that's what
but
it
you're
is.
doing
That's
what
how it
the
works.
whole thing is freedom. You're doing what
That's
you
it.
want to do, and that's something I don't. There's no price on that to me. Like
There isn't.
I think that I would sell Bitcoin for my freedom. Like that to me is worth it. I don't want to
But
be
to me,
reckless.
see, that's the thing. To me, Bitcoin is freedom,
It is so free. It
right?
is.
Be
Yes.
because it gives you the ability to do whatever you want to. Like, let's say, let's say you have enough Bitcoin to buy a Lamborghini. You have the
Yes.
freedom to do it
Yeah.
in your bank account, but it's not like you're going to do it, right? It's because
No,
that's not your that's
that's not my
it gives you
style.
the
But that's
freedom to
something else.
choose.
Yes, it gives you the free. Yeah, I don't care what other people, whatever everybody else, but it does give you the freedom to do it. When
Yes.
if you're stuck in a corporate America, there is no freedom to
No,
veer.
not at all.
I mean, I'm a four. I think I earned finally by the end 4 weeks vacation. Woo! I mean, that. I mean that. I have now have the freedom to be in on vacation most of the time and enjoy myself. So I think that's exactly what Bitcoin did for me. Is it brought me freedom.
And I think even with your vacation, let's say you get a vacation, your company could just be paying you a little bit less because you're not working 4 weeks of the
Exactly.
year, right?
Yeah. And
They
I
could be
think
paying
that
four. They could be paying you less based on you not being there for 4 weeks, and it's not like they have to tell you. They can just dilute the numbers.
exactly. I mean, they probably have built that in over the 20 years and they're
Yeah,
like, I mean, she thinks she's earning this. At 5 years, she got an extra week. And then at 10 years, you get an
yeah,
extra week on top of that. And they probably built all that in way before I
yeah,
even. I'm thinking,
absolutely.
like,
That
I
that's
mean,
exactly what it is.
yeah. So I think 4 weeks, I mean, that I'm still on that stuck in that same system that I got to return to. I don't.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
that, yeah, I'm sure the numbers were run way before
Oh yeah,
it. So
absolutely.
yeah.
I think I think that's the key here. Just accumulate Bitcoin, get out of the rat race if you have to. I'm not against the 9 to 5.
No,
That's not the
if it
point
works
here.
for me, and it worked for me for a long time, but at some point, it's the thing is there's an option. You have an option,
Yeah,
like you can opt out. Like I've opted out now. Like, but and I didn't have that option before. I didn't even, that wasn't even in my playbook to think
yeah.
I can opt.
That's it. I mean, it
Yeah,
gives you that option that you may not even have thought of in the past ever, and
yeah,
that's the key. That's the key.
yeah.
So do you post anywhere? Do you post your thoughts anywhere? Do you have a newsletter or anything like that?
No,
I know you
I
have
don't
Twitter.
have that. No, I just do Twitter. I just started that in April after January, February when we saw the big jump, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah,
jumping. And that's when I was like, I think I think I've made the right choice here. It's like
yeah,
I think I've and then I really started paying attention to what everybody else was doing. I didn't want Twitter, I didn't want other people's noise in my head
yes,
first 5, 6 years because I thought just like with the cannabis thing, I'm one to jump on it. If I hear something's good, I'm like, oh, let me go. Like jumped on the cannabis thing. So I needed to just for these past 5 years kind of step back and go, all right, is this study everything I'm studying, read the books I need to read, and
yeah.
then wait for things to happen. So,
That's pretty much it.
and I'm grateful for people like you because it validates everything I've seen, what I've lived through, what I mean. So for me, and it's neat being on the Twitter to see everybody talking because I'm like, oh, all these people are thinking the same thing. This is validating, and actually, you're super educated in what you present and super helpful because I don't think somebody's laid out things the way you have. So it helps a bunch for me. Because my thoughts are kind of scattered sometimes. I'm like, this is great, whatever. So it's nice to have some reason to the madness, and it is a little maddening,
Yeah.
a little chaotic.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to keep getting crazier because more and more people are going to join.
Well,
Keep in
even
mind, as more people adopt Bitcoin, it means more gamblers adopt Bitcoin as well, right? There's going to be more. I think the volatility at some point, maybe the volatility will go away, but I think the volatility is going to be
not for
upward.
yeah, but not for 10 years. Probably we won't see the volatility like stabilize. I don't
No,
think.
I think the only time when it'll be stable is when the world is using Bitcoin as money, when the US dollar completely fails. Because if you think about it, to Venezuela, to Argentinians, the
Right.
US dollar seems like it's volatile,
Yes.
right? Because they
Yes.
use a different currency. So to them, so I went on a trip to Argentina. In the beginning of my trip, 1,170 pesos bought 100 US dollars.
Wow.
At
Okay.
the end of my trip, 1,300 pesos bought 100 US dollars,
Wow.
right? So to
Wow.
them, it's like, okay, the US dollar is volatile. But
Wow.
that volatility, no, go ahead.
No, that's huge. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot, like numbers wise. like in your
10,
head.
10%, 11% growth within 2 weeks, right? And I think when a lot of people think that the US dollar will survive, I don't think they see it from that perspective. I don't think they see it from that angle. Any last thoughts from you
No, I
before
think
we
that's
wrap
it.
up?
Thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity and look forward to it.